Hello and welcome to Ascend to Joy with Christine Elwert. So glad to be with you today. Last week, or at least in a previous video, I talked about anger. And I talked about it from my perspective and my experience. And I just wanted to say a little bit more about that because I think it's a really, really important topic today. First of all, I'm a guide and a teacher and a healer in the lineage of King Solomon, certified by the Modern Mystery School. And I also was a psychologist for 26 years and many other things, which happens when you get to my stage of life. So I wanted to talk to you, and I'm an author of this book, Ascend to Joy, Transform Your Life Through Living Kabbalah. So I wanted to talk about some nuances to this discussion on anger. Remember, I said that all emotion is an energy. And that because all things are energy, right? And everything is energy. And so when we're looking at an emotion, we want to look at the vibration that emotion brings us to. And interestingly enough, anger is one of those vibrations that has a very, very small differentiation between what we typically call anger and what we may call passion. So we're talking about an emotion that is either located and moderated and modulated by the higher self, that part of you that is truly the image and likeness of God, or the part of you that is the lower self that is caught in the programming, the woundedness, the unresolved issues in your life. And that when we're looking at becoming part of a movement to bring about Shambhala, to bring in light, this energy is something we have to deal with. You see it all over the place, especially in Facebook. Oh my gosh. And so we want to learn how to use this so that it falls into the realm of passion, the higher self, and not the realm of rage. Well, they're so similar, right? But we don't want to be in the lower self, because what the lower self does is it takes this emotion and it focuses us on victimhood. And it focuses us away from taking personal responsibility for our feelings. Whereas passion moves us and promotes an elevation of our wanting to make the world a better place. And it is rarely connected or locked into unresolved feelings. It is something that comes from the higher self. It comes in from the divine, this passion to make life better. And so I'm looking at all the things going back and forth, the discussions, in Facebook, which actually I love that people are talking about feelings. I particularly love it when they're doing it respectfully. And I revel in it when they are open to learning from one another. I just think that's awesome. Because unless we're willing to have the conversations, we are not going to find those areas where we come together and we create a platform for the hierarchy of light to bring in heaven on earth. So I wanted to give you some examples. As I had talked about how anger can be, and I made it sound like an either or, that anger's either rooted in the old unresolved issues, or it's strictly coming in from the light. And it can be a combination of those things. And I want to give you an example. So when I was 15 years old, I had an opportunity to be an exchange student in Ecuador, Quito, Ecuador. And I was coming from a very, I would consider it a very parochial, very guarded, very sheltered upbringing in many ways. And so going to a third world country, which in 1967? Yeah, I think it was in 1967. Yeah, because it was during the Detroit riots. So I was in a third world country where we had the Detroit riots at home, and they were in complete civil unrest in the country of Ecuador. And I had a unique opportunity because there were 20 of us from the Detroit area that went on this program, and 19 of them were placed with very, very wealthy families. And then there was one, me, who got placed with, it's a middle-class family, which was a very, very small percentage of the population at that time. And we had an opportunity to work with a Peace Corps worker to help distribute, well, actually our job as 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds was to entertain the children in the barrio while the mothers were receiving classes on hygiene and health and healthy habits, and then they were given milk to take home to their families. And what I saw inside the barrio, which in 1967 was a walled-off area of the city, huge mud walls between the rest of the city and this area, in which people were living in the most abject poverty, something I'd never seen. I'd never seen children like in the magazines with the little distended bellies and the little peg legs, and then they had little, there were sores on their little naked bodies. I just, any of you have had that experience, you know that it can tear your heart out. That's all I can tell you. It just tears your heart out. And so when I came home from that trip, I was filled with indignation and rage. My parents, I'm the oldest of 10, and they swore that none of their kids were going to do an exchange program because I was such a pistol. And I I feel badly for my brothers and sisters because it actually was a very wonderful experience. However, I was filled with so much rage. I was filled with rage and guilt. Oh, profound guilt. Why was I born in the place that I was born? You know, with this skin and this appearance and these beautiful brown children that I was working with were born into the circumstances that they were born into. My sense of justice just went crazy. Now, I had a response from my lower self, and I had a response from my higher self. The response from my lower self came from a place of not knowing how to handle this emotional energy. And so I was just angry with everybody. I became extremely rebellious, and I went to a Catholic school, and I don't know, I did a lot of things that they did not promote. Let me put it that way. And I just entered into a time of self-destruction and was many times destructive with my energy to other people, of which I have asked forgiveness. Then there was a part of that anger, a part of that rage that was completely passionate, that moved me in ways that I don't know too much else would have moved me. Consider my background. And at that time, I had an opportunity to join a student organization called SOAR, Students Organized Against Racism. Now, at the time, my school was white. And this organization was filled with students from all different schools, Catholic schools in the Archdiocese of Detroit, who were getting together, and it was a young priest, and bless his heart, God bless him, right? He wanted us to dialogue. He wanted us to talk. He wanted us to get to know each other. And so we would gather together. We got together at Sacred Heart Seminary, and we would have these meetings, and we would talk about what it's like to be Black and what it's like to be brown and what it's like to be white, and try to dispel some of the myths that all of us had grown up with, and to find common ground, not to make any of us like any other of us, but to just have a dialogue, to find language, to find a meeting of hearts. And I made some fabulous friends in that group. It was interesting because when we got beyond the communications stage and we started planning action, of course, you know, we're talking about 1968, 1969. So action was protests and, you know, a variety of things. But it was interesting. When we got to that point of action, suddenly we were told we could no longer meet. And so that brought up another whole level of anger that I kind of went down the lower self path with. So there are so many different ways what we can do with this energy. When I talked about the, that we choose what we feel, I think it's more, there is truth in that. It doesn't mean it's always bad or good. Let's take it out of that realm. It just is. But what we have to look at is the fruits. Okay, where does this emotion take us? Does it take us to a revolution of love that includes everyone? Everyone? Because if it does not, then we've kind of missed the boat. So when you feel yourself being triggered, you have a choice. You can respond by taking that energy and making it into something, making it into magic, where you take something and you make it into something else. Or you can respond, you can react in a way that does not take in all of the cycle of human processes, that it has an unawareness to it that can cause some destruction. So again, I just invite you to look at this energy, to use this energy as a means of producing something beautiful in the world. Self-discovery. Enter into a study of Kabbalah. Get this stuff out of the unconscious and into the light, and resolve. And whatever you don't resolve, file for future reference. Journal. Meditate. Consider ways of expressing that energy that produces life, and life more abundantly. I love you. And I hope that the next time you experience the heat, the fire of anger, that you move it into that realm of passion, passion for good, moving you into action. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.